running around with the Queen. It's like giving him
a platform.
Yeah. And she didn't prevent Boris Johnson proroguing Parliament. I mean, it took Liberal Democrat, some good Labour parliamentarians to try and stop all that. But in the end, it's all gone through. And I think this is when poor old Philip, I think he should have spoken out. Charles and Elizabeth should be speaking out. I mean, I actually wrote to the Queen and said she should threaten to abdicate if Brexit is forced through without another referendum. If I had been the monarch,
but she doesn't,
I would have done
maybe
that.
She wants it, I don't really know.
Well, all I can say, I'll just answer finishing this question with one final quote. I was very good friends with a man called Dr. Zaki Badawi, who was a very brilliant Muslim theologian in London. And he employed me to teach at the Muslim college back in the days when I was causing trouble in London, right? And I loved him. He was my mentor. He was a Sufi, a philosopher, he had a PhD. He was from Al-Azhar University. And he knew Charles. He'd met the Queen. He got a knighthood. He's Sir Zaki Badawi.
Okay.
He was the most important Muslim in Britain.
Okay.
And, I'm not betraying confidences here. He said, privately, he said to me, Thomas, the trouble with your monarchy is they're not very intelligent.
Oh, really?
He'd met them, right?
They're just not very smart.
He said they're just not very smart.
They buy their way into university and school, and then that's it.
Yeah, and they live in a sort of cuckolded, like behind the moats. And they don't mix with normal people. And you can't be intelligent if you don't go out and meet people. I mean, you're intelligent because you've gone to all these places and met ordinary people and had conversations with the rich and the poor. I mean, if anything I said mattered, I'd send these monarchs 1 month a year out to go live in council estates around the country and live on 40 quid a week. And just see what normal people have to cope with.
Or go and work in the camps.
Or go and work in Calais camps, So no, I'm a bit disillusioned. I think it will be interesting, but I think they're in for a rough ride. I don't think the Scots are probably going to find the idea of monarchy much use when they've got independence.
No.
I don't think the Scots are going to, I think, they're going to have another referendum and become a republic. And I have to say that living in France and picking up the ambiance, I think that the Republican model of the French is, you can kind of understand why they did it.
Yeah.
Because if you get a corrupt or ignorant or maybe not very intelligent sort of monarchy holding power at the heart, it blocks the people of intelligence from coming forward. And I think that's what we've got in Britain. And we've got mediocre people in power. Like Johnson is a mediocre person.
Yeah.
All those Tories are. And it's like mediocre monarchs want mediocre people around them because they're not a threat.
Okay.
Whereas a true flourishing nation would have intelligent rulers who want really intelligent people. Which is, why people have revolutions, like why the Americans did it. So I think we're living through that change now. And I think it's unstoppable. Well, I don't think it's going to be, touch wood, I don't think it's a violent revolution. It's not the British way. It's an intellectual revolution. It's Intellectuals for Free Scotland, which is a group I'm involved with Now Scotland. I mean, it's an intellectual revolution. It's the final project, which was called the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
This is what Kant was praying for, and all the great intellectuals of European history, including Marx. It's called progress and liberty, equality and fraternity, Okay, my final question to you is, so on top of all this, you've now gone and worked in this camp in Calais with refugees who are stranded trying to get into Britain, which is... And how long have you done that work, and what's that like? And what's the lesson you've learned?
I started I went there for 2 weeks when it was the big jungle in 2016.
Right.
When it was 10,000 people.
In Calais.
In Calais. And that was because there was an influx of people because of the Syrian war. And that was when there was the refugee crisis.
So a lot of them were Syrian then?
Lots of them were Syrian then, lots and lots of them. But also there's lots more people, I think, at the time. And Calais has had refugees for 20, 30 years. There's lots of Vietnamese refugees, there's lots of Albanian.
Even before then?
Always there's been refugees there. But this is a new kind of way. So jungle, there was the big jungle with 10,000 people, and I went for 2 weeks just to help in the warehouse. I wanted to help. It was really in the media at the time. There was hundreds of people volunteering, many organisations.
I knew other people who went,
yeah. Lots of community-led stuff. Really beautiful grassroots organising. A coalition of French and English groups coming together to make this one thing, help refugees in this one warehouse, where all different organisations were working in and out of the refugee camp. Like organisations run by the refugees themselves.
And what was the warehouse? It had like goods you were distributing?
Yeah, and it had mountains of donations. It was just like a place of hope. And when I got there, I realised that there wasn't one way of life. I grew up in the suburbs. I'd never been exposed to anything that different.
So it's kind of culture shock for you.
It was just a shock of, it's people living in caravans on site in a warehouse, helping people who don't have anything, but they also don't have anything, and it was a really nice kind of beautiful, really anarchist, heartfelt thing by people who didn't have lots of money. It wasn't like this kind of professional thing. It was just people who had to do a job and live there and put their heart into it. Then I came back in 2018, I think, and I stayed there for 9 months. And I worked in the wood yard. We distribute wood to the refugee camps.
So in the Calais camp there's one big wood yard where they
There's
will
one wood
get
yard. We take it out to refugee camps. And it had changed. I mean, there's no big jungle. There was no jungle in Dunkirk that was the same. It was big. It was about 2,000 people living in Dunkirk and about 800 people living in Calais. But they had just started. Well, I mean, the hostile environment has been there for a while, but they just started, I think, on the offensive much more when I got there.
The police,
they rounded everyone up in Dunkirk, 1,700 people, many kids, many Kurdish kids, put them all onto buses, but before that they cable tied their hands and wrote numbers on their necks.
Oh, for God's sake.
Put them onto buses, drove them around for 7 hours, and then dropped them off in the middle of a forest. And that was it.
And took the things off.
Yeah, and that was it. And I all took them to detention centres. It was like no one knew what to do. They were tear gassing them. It was horrific. And I was there in the warehouse, but I was a new volunteer, so I didn't really know what was going on. I could just feel that it was bad. And then since then, it's just been, always it's been horrific, but now it's much more institutionally horrific. They come every 2 days to evict all of the camps in Calais. And if their people aren't there, if they've gone out, then they take away all their stuff. The government.
So they're living on edge.
Always. And there's no legal. So there's this like false narrative in the UK that says that they're illegal. Come here legally and we'll help you. But if you're illegal, we have nothing. We have nothing for you. But there are no legal routes in the UK. There's no bridge to walk across. There's no embassy in Calais that you can go to and apply for. It doesn't exist because the Calais refugee camp is not a legal refugee camp. It was in 2016, but the UN left, everyone left, and now they say there's no refugee camp here. It's just some people who stay. It doesn't really exist though.
But they're trying to get onto trains. You told me a story of somebody whose legs were killed.
Yeah, someone of my friends lost his leg getting onto a train. I mean, people die all the time. Like in the last 3 months, 4 people have died crossing over. There's a list of them.
In the Calais camp?
Yeah, crossing over on boats. We collect people from the water every evening. People are trying to get over on boats. And
you mean not dead people every evening?
No, they fall
come
in
back.
and they come back. Yeah, the Coast Guard will follow them.
The French Coast Guard or the British?
The French Coast Guard will follow them, the police. And if they fall in, they'd pick them up and take them back.
How about building a bridge? I mean, Johnson wants a bridge between Britain and Ireland. How about France and Britain?
Yeah, we thought about it.
And then they can go over.
That's so great, yeah.
I mean, look, it's only 800 people. I think I said this before. I mean, why don't we let them in? I just don't
Because
get it.
we have a systematised hostile environment, so
And because
it doesn't matter whether there's two people
Brexit
there or not.
ratcheted up sort of racist concepts
Yeah.
of, well, they're all slightly brown, so we
Yeah,
don't
and
want
they're
them
not
you know.
skilled, and they don't have like.
It's a snobbery thing, isn't it?
And it's difficult the other way around.
They're not human. They're not properly human.
No, and then when you speak to people, they're the revolutionaries of their country who are way more versed in politics and literature of the West, let alone of their
The people
places.
in the camp.
Yeah.
They're
You have this
right,
conversation.
super interesting, intelligent
Oh my
people.
god, just and like as you'd
Yeah.
expect, anywhere you go in the world, you meet, everyone has the same, they question the same existential questions. They love art, they love music. There is no reason why we assume that they're different, and that's the problem of the world at the moment, is this othering and assuming that in England we have this like we're at the top of this thing that doesn't exist, that we created in our
All this power
minds to
structure,
colonise
imperialism,
people.
whatever,
Yeah, and actually
Yeah, fake history has been going on.
fake history. And
Joan of Arc stood up to it and she got burned as a
well,
witch.
exactly.
I mean, I've learned a lot coming to France. The French view of history of Britain is very different.
Well, exactly. Like everyone's history is
They're
different.
pillaging brigands, the British, you know.
Yeah, which they are, and it even runs in the people I work with. They go into refugee camp and we're surprised when people have Instagrams or this, and it's okay. We just need to learn that.
Education is. Are there any school parties coming to these camps? From Britain.
There's a school party. What do you mean?
Well, like
teach
school
people.
kids coming out with a teacher and saying,
Oh no.
"Let's go."
No, because that's not that's
like
not.
sociology A-level students or something. I mean, it would be such a great chance for them to learn.
There's a few.
I wonder if it's in the curriculum, this stuff, because this is sociological lab research territory, isn't it?
There's lots of international development students, which I have a problem with, because you can read a book all you want, but it doesn't mean you'll be good at the work on the ground. And actually what the work is...
You mean they're coming to volunteer?
They're coming to volunteer, and actually no one... It's fine, it's doing the work that it's doing quite well, but there's also a level of why is it these young, very young people, me included, are working on the border for these like grown men mainly, and assuming that we can tell them, like what they want, and it's a very bizarre dynamic of working, because we don't have any there's nothing professional about our organisations.
The charity ones that are helping the camps.
Yeah, and these are people who have like walked across the world and have studied degrees and are doctors and teachers. And
do they have any like camp schools
organising
and universities that they?
It's not a camp, they live in tents.
They're living in tents.
It's not a camp. Yeah, it's just groups.
But
of
do
people
they?
in
Are they?
tents.
What's the average stay rate for them? Do they?
It can vary from a night to 2 years. But they're trying every evening, so they go every evening to try to get onto the trains or the boats.
And then, I mean, I just find the whole thing so tragic, because of course Britain is going downhill, and why would you want to go there anyway?
I know.
I mean,
And they're being put in barracks in the UK, they're being put in prison.
once they get there, they're being put in
I
prison.
have a 17-year-old friend who got over from Syria.
Right.
And he's a kid, he's a minor.
17-year-old.
17-year-old got
And
to
he
the
got
UK.
through the trains.
He got through on the other side. I put him in touch with my friend who's actually training to be a lawyer, and she kind of took on the case. And he's been put in Napier Barracks, and Napier Barracks they closed down because it was too horrific. Like the conditions were too horrific.
Where is it?
In Kent.
Right. It's not the one that caught fire. There was one that
Yeah,
caught fire.
it's the
Was
same
it?
one. And they closed it, and they said, "Oh, we're closing it, yay!" And now they've reopened it again. They're putting my friend in there who's 17, which is illegal to put a minor in there on his own.
And it's like a sort of prison camp type thing.
Detention centre, and you can be deported at any level of your asylum claim now.
Well, it's not, yeah. So, okay, my final question about this. Is
Yeah.
anyone documenting this? Our film, have you You make films, don't you? I mean, has nobody filmed this and shown
It's being filmed all the time.
Is it?
Yeah, it's being for this.
But it's not on the BBC, is it?
Because they don't.
They
Yeah,
don't
they've
want
come.
the story
The
to be
BBC's
told.
come. I've met the Sun. The Times is there, but it doesn't. Again, it's not news. It's not new.
Right.
So it's not news.
So they don't bother with it on the front
If I
page.
could take people individually to there and say, like, just look what's going on, then you wouldn't be able to turn off your heart, you know?
Mm.
I can't ever think about the rain in the same way because I know that there are people living outside. And then you can kind of grow that to the whole world and go, how many people there are living outside?
Yeah.
How many people, millions of people are living in, like, dire poverty?
Mm.
These people are also victims of capitalism, and we just need people to be
To
see
understand.
it, to physically see it and sit down with someone. Because what's so beautiful is what we do is we give wood, but we also sit down every time we were asked to sit down with people
And
just have a chat and normalise
Hear
each
their
other
stories.
and and just chat about nothing, take the piss out of each other
Mm.
and
Be
learn.
human.
Yeah,
Mm.
and if I could just get every single Tory person to come and sit down with these people, you wouldn't be able to switch off. You wouldn't be able to do the things that you're doing. Like you said, the king living in his place, not going down with the people, can make these decisions. That you know, Priti Patel can make these decisions.
Yeah, because she never talks to normal people.
She
She
doesn't come to the
mingle.
refugee camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
But bring them there. There's a really nice film about a Tory that goes and lives with New Age travellers
Really?
after the Battle of the Beanfield.
Ah, yeah, Lord Cardigan.
Yeah, and she at the beginning she kind of hates them. She falls in love with them at the end of it, and it changes
Yeah,
the laws because it's people.
sure. No, that's the dialogue we need to have.
Yeah.
And round the corner from, in the 19th century, we had this man Pierre Leroux, who was the mayor of Boussac,
Okay.
and he coined socialism in France.
Oh,
He was the
wow.
first socialist thinker,
Wow.
and he wrote books about the advent of a socialist future and all that, and he wrote about the spiritual dimension of that. He didn't agree with Marx's determinist theory, it'll all be based on economic determinism. He knew Marx, and he knew George Sand, who lived locally, a novelist.
Okay.
And he was involved in the 1848 revolution in France when they moved yet a step further towards progress, got rid of the corrupt ruler, and French history is like a zigzag process.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like the fact that I'm living in Pierre
That's
Leroux's shadow, and he was an interesting mystic socialist.
Okay.
So anyway, we've had a good chat, so thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you.
And we'll and you're going back there, aren't you, when
Yeah.
you leave here?
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Yeah.
And I'll be working away from my angle, trying to, somehow bring some light and reason to this crazy world.
Yeah.
I see these people as victims of the giant, mega military capitalist machine.
Yeah.
The Syrian war was all avoidable. Mega capitalism, decided to try and destroy Syria. We know that from the Assange leaks.
Yeah.
The then Democrat Party thought that's cool, we'll destroy Syria, which was functioning fine as a state, and that's about greed. And so history is very interesting. If you look at it from the inside, the psychological history, Brexit's all about greed and swagger, and so is war. And so I fight for peace, or struggle for peace, through non-violence and through that quiet, presence that has a counter-narrative going.
Yeah.
So thanks very much for coming and staying here at the museum and helping.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll finish there.
Okay.
Okay, so shalom, salam, greetings to all our friends.
Thanks.
And greetings to the people in the camps.
Yeah.
You can show them this film, right?
Yeah.
If
We get them. I'll get one of them. They wanted to come here actually. They asked me.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
get them.
send them down. I'll have one at a time.